from the 37th parallel on America's haunted highway, it's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pixelated Paranormal's 150th episode. 150. So for more than 150 episodes, because technically this should be like 154, counting a couple specials, we've been coming to you, bringing you the strange, the spooky, the unexplained, the mispronounced, sometimes even the unintelligible.
Mongol.
And Bigfoot porn. Don't forget the Bigfoot
the
porn.
Smut.
And Preston not knowing where Mongolia is or what it
Right. The humiliating impressions and the unusual and the weird. And for over 4 years, we've received nothing but positive support, amazing listener stories, and more. So, for the 150th episode, we want to bring you guys even more spooky and chilling tales that we've been told by listeners like you. That's right. Episode 150 is just nothing but listener stories.
Which is pretty crazy that we got that many, considering we're always saying, hey, message us, write us, email us, send us anything. And we went to town on this, and we got a lot of support, and awesome. And what's even better is that it's from listeners and it's from non-listeners too, just random people within the interwebs too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. We do have a few stories from folks that we just talked to just offhand, and they gave us their creepy stories. So this is exciting. We've got revelations. We've got follow-ups. We've got vindication stories, because there is one follow-up to a story that I screwed up that I recanted from a buddy of mine's experience back when we were just out of high school. And we've got so much more, so it's going to be super awesome. We're very, very excited for this. But first, we got a little bit of news. So first out the gate, a giant squid weighing over 700 pounds washed up on the shore of a beach.
Hell no.
A giant squid weighing over 700 pounds washed up on the Golden Mile Beach in Britannia Bay, South Africa. The remains of the giant squid washed up on a beach around 95 miles northwest of Cape Town on June 7th. The giant squid was found by Adelaide Gross of Cape Town, who told Live Science that at first she wanted to get it back in the ocean, but after closer observation, she discovered it was already dead. She said, "Oh my word, seeing it at first, it really took my breath away. Honestly, it looked like a majestic prehistoric animal."
There's dogs
it's
barking,
unclear.
by the way. Sorry.
What's that?
There's dogs barking, by the way.
All good, man. I think dogs barking, you'll probably hear my AC in the background because it is hot as hell right now in Kansas. So don't you even worry, Steve. Don't you worry your pretty little golden curls.
Golden curls. Fuck these curls, man.
It's unclear how the giant squid died, but Gross said they had abnormally large swells the night before, and it may be her understanding that a swell washed the beautiful squid up onto the beach just hours before she discovered it. They searched for bite marks or injuries and couldn't find anything telling. So essentially, this poor thing just must have accidentally caught an undercurrent and just washed up on shore and got stranded.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
And what's
it basically ran out of fucking oxygen because it can't breathe air, so it
very good, Preston.
Choked to death. I don't know what happened to the squid. It fucking couldn't breathe because it wasn't in water. It died.
Oh my god! So the picture of this thing is pretty incredible. But what's even crazier is every time I go, I love going to aquariums, and every time I go, the only thing in that entire building that I'm ever creeped out about is octopus and squid, and maybe jellyfish a little bit, but not so much jellyfish. Definitely these things, because they're just so massive. There's way too many fucking appendages to keep track of, And
Yeah.
they're so intelligent. I mean, not this one, obviously. He fucking couldn't even get out of the beach. No, I'm just joking.
Wow.
No, this thing is massive. But think about that. Like, the picture is great because in the background you see two people walking, and even though they're farther away, they're not that far away. But the size of this thing compared to their bodies is pretty insane. And then
Fucking have calamari for like 6 months.
yeah,
Jesus.
and then
Yeah.
and then just the thing is like that was this thing in this area. You know, there's so much ocean out there that we've not even explored, and there's things probably 3 times as big as this. That's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who theorize that, quote, alien life on Earth could actually be something that's subterranean or submersed. And what we would find out is that alien life actually already lives in the deepest part of the oceans, and it won't come from outer space, but instead the very depths of the ocean.
Nice.
Yeah, I have an unbridled fear of squid and octopuses as well. Octopode.
Yeah, it's not like a fear. Like I can go near it, but like I could just like I have this vision of like putting. Anytime I go to an aquarium, I'm like, man, I would love to be in there just swimming next to these fish, or I just want to put my hand in there and let the fish touch me. But like just thinking about putting my hand in an octopus cage and it just like just fucking all around my arm and just like. My arm just disintegrating because they're so strong. Like,
well, and I mean, look at the mouth on those things.
Yeah.
They have a beak like a bird. They can fucking just snap bone in half.
yeah, and that's
crush
everything.
all
It
its
looks
shells,
alien as
everything else.
shit. Like it looks like something coming from the sky, coming to fucking eat you.
Don't fuck
Yeah,
with Cthulhu. Don't
Yeah.
fuck with Cthulhu.
Yeah, that too, man. Like it's crazy shit.
Fuck. Yeah, the heck with that noise. Well, Steve, what do you got, man? You got a bit of news for us too.
So Netflix is getting ready to do another documentary series. It explores the archives of the most haunted places in the world. Now, Netflix does a really, really good job on their documentaries. They're always very well done, very well orchestrated. Their soundtracks are always really good. Like they have Netflix or the documentary game on lock. So basically, haunted night tours, like we've all done one. I did one in New Orleans. You guys have both done the one in Eureka Springs and many other places. But them ones, you know, like I think that when you look at like very haunted tours, some of the ones that come to mind, like in my opinion, the Stanley, like that's on everybody's to-do list basically. So that's what this show's going to cover is what I'm assuming is they're going to be doing like the most famous, you know, type of things, but doing it in like documentary style. So it's going to talk about like the case, and then it's going to say like try to show proof of afterlife and all that type of stuff. So it says Netflix has announced an upcoming horror themed documentary series in which they will take a look throughout the most haunted houses, hotels, and cemeteries around the United States. They have selected the eeriest sites, different spots that claim to be the most haunted places in the world will be explored. The world, but it's only America. Typical America. Places where people have witnessed terrible stories, infamous acts that have left the surroundings with a heavy atmosphere with countless ghostly apparitions. Horror-themed titles appear to have gained a great success on Netflix. Series such as Haunting of Hill House, dope, for example, showed the horror genre has a pretty promising future and great potential. It always has. But so I don't know. That sounds pretty awesome. Because I mean, Netflix has killed it on their horror stuff, in my opinion. I mean, into the Tall Grass, Dark.
The Ritual.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Fucking Haunted Hill House, Gerald's Game, like all the type of thriller horror, they're really good at it. So I'm pretty excited for this.
The thing is, though, that has me a little bit nervous is Netflix also needs to realize they need to watch out before they get too big for their britches, because if you go back to that documentary, quote, documentary series Haunted, where people tell their stories of what exactly happened to them growing up.
Yes.
I think it was episode 5 of season 1.
Yeah, that shit was
Slaughterhouse.
It was very intense.
Slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
They caught a lot of flack because essentially that was like an unsolved cold case serial killing spree that basically broke on Netflix.
And
so, I mean, just look that up sometime. They caught a lot of flack for A, it being fake, and B, having all this information and then using it to, you know, build up this documentary series and then turn around.
So that was
it
was a cold case?
Well, we don't know. That's the thing. We just caught the story that two girls grew up in a house where the parents lured in drifters and murdered them.
Yeah, and like hundreds of them.
Yeah,
during the time of the drift, the Woodstock and stuff, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's been so long, as 60s or 70s, but still, to have that information and then to be like, oh shit, no one knows about this. How many unsolved murders?
It was pretty weird watching that, and you were like, what? I've never heard of this.
But
exactly.
The first episode on that series talked about the little boy. And he witnessed the axe murder inside the diner, and then there was a ghost of a lady.
Yeah,
that was actual all bullshit. That guy is a horror film writer and producer, and he basically made all that up to test the waters to see how people would respond to it. So it makes you wonder, okay, so if the first one's all bullshit, then what about
has Netflix when they advertised when they first launched that show, did they say these are real stories, these are real firsthand accounts, or do we all just assume that?
No, they said these are based on eyewitness accounts, and they give the typical bullshit disclaimer. Watch at your own risk and blah blah blah.
Yeah, this will be a little different because they're going to be going to places that you, Preston, can actually go to. If we want to go to the Amityville house, we can go by there and look at it. Blah blah blah. So it's a little different in that regard. I thought the haunted show, that's how I went into watching them videos. I was like, oh, this person's account. Well, it might have happened. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. But that one was really weird because it's you're telling me over 200 drifters got murdered, chopped up.
Yeah.
And no one's heard about this? What the hell?
Yeah.
And if you guys have not watched that, you need to watch it because at least that episode, I can't remember what number it is. Is it 4 or 5, something like that?
I think it's 5.
Yeah, I think it's 5 episodes, 2 seasons, probably about 10 episodes total.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it on the show before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Preston, you mentioned a bit ago, back when that story of Dear David broke, everybody was just tuning in daily to find out updates from Adam Ellis. He's a comic illustrator, and he makes, web comics and whatnot. And at the very, very end, he reveals the entire thing is a sham. And granted, I kind of thought it would be the entire time, but it's a fun story. It keeps you on the edge of your feet. And then just to have the bubble burst right in front of you, give me that 1% of potential for it to be real, and then just take that away too. Fuck that. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Don't sell this shit.
Yeah.
In regards to this show, I mean, we're experts on the unusual and the strange. And folklore is my big, makes me chub. So I like to think that sometimes we're just reporting on folklore that's becoming iconic throughout America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and let's argue, Steve, that I've had enough unexplainable stuff happen to me to where it's hard for me to, in good faith, turn around and tell you your story's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's the age-old thing. I want to believe, and where's my saying to say this person didn't go through this shit? That's how it'll be for all these stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I guess that's kind of an interesting example because Steve, you haven't really experienced, hardly anything.
Not one thing. Well,
you've seen a few lights in the skies.
Yeah, the lights in the sky. That's it. The one time.
Yeah. Yeah, and Preston and I talk about this all the time. We know what we've experienced, so we go into this stuff wanting it to be real and giving it a good listen and giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. There are stories we've reported on in the show in the last 150 plus episodes that, obviously they're just bullshit. Yeah. And I'm not saying listener stories, but the big main stories, they're probably poppycock. But,
one more thing real quick back to the Netflix show thing. Another reason why I'm really excited for that show is because I think besides Haunted, another great docu-series type show that they did was Dark Tourist. That was a phenomenal show.
I never finished.
You guys gotta finish that. It's not all spooky. It's not all crazy. It's just weird places people want to go. Chernobyl and go to one of them funerals where they actually have a body rot and go and take the body and do all this stuff hanging on that mountain with like all the weird coffins and stuff like inside that mountain, all kinds of stuff like that. Like it's really interesting, and the way they shot that, like this guy, and then it was like kind of like a documentary thing, but they interviewed people on the spot that.
David Ferrier is his name. Yeah,
and like I've been like just waiting for them to announce season 2. They haven't canceled it yet. Netflix it's still on the plate, but he's not traveled anywhere yet, and they haven't filmed anything. He says he's just got a Google Doc full of places to go and stories he wants to tell. And anytime he hears about something crazy, like he writes it down. So when they do call him and say, hey, we're going to look into doing a season 2, he's got all the work done. Like, here's this, pick the best ones and get the flights booked, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's good, man.
To hold you over for season 2 between now and then, he also has a 2016 documentary called Tickled.
Really?
And if you have not watched it, you should check it out.
Is that guy Australian, New Zealand, or what?
I want to say he's Kiwi, if I remember right.
Cool.
Let's just say he is, for the sake of me researching.
Yeah, we got a listener that might find offense to that.
Well, I'd say let's just get into it. We chalked this bad boy up as being a bonanza full of listener stories, and that's exactly what we have. But this just in, we got a message from Rob. Rob was supposed to join us today, but he had to call off at the last second. But let me play this real quick.
Hi, it's me, Robert Henderson Manwood, Rob. As you know, 150 podcasts is nothing to sneeze at. I know. I've done it twice now, I believe. I've got to 150 on 2 different podcasts. So it takes a while. It takes dedication. And Sean and Preston and Steve have all put their effort in, and they made a fantastic product that I helped to get off the ground, which was my only legacy of that podcast, was to get it off the ground and help Sean because he wanted to do a podcast, and I thought, hey, it'd be cool. Then I just got burned out on all podcasts. So, but I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of the product they continue to put out. I love all the silly voices and stuff like that. But 150, wow. So I just wanted to let you guys know that they do a great job, and you guys do a great job, and I know you guys have got lots of faithful listeners, and some may even miss me. And to those people, I don't know why. You're sick individuals, I guess. But anyway, I just wanted to share a listener story, because as you know, here recently, my dog, Halo, had passed away, and he'd been here for 12 years, so he'd been here for the entire time that I've known Sean and Preston and Steve and a lot of people, honestly. And he passed away recently. We had to put him down, but his presence is still felt here at the house. Our cat has kind of been in mourning, we think. She's been like laying underneath the end table and stuff. And my mom was telling me the other day that she was laying underneath the end table, and all of a sudden she just darted up and ran down the hallway like she was chasing after something. And I told her, I said, well, I bet it was Halo's ghost. But I still swear sometimes when I walk in there in the living room late at night when we're all playing Xbox that I can still see his shadow still sitting there on his spot in the couch. And but I just want to say too that I was having a really bad day like 2 weeks after he passed away, and so I had went to sleep that night, and that morning, right before I woke up, I had a dream that he came into my bedroom and jumped up on the bed with me, and he was just like all happy and playful and young again, and he was just happy to see me. And I joked with everybody, and I said that well, my little angel must have got his wings, and he just got through angel orientation. So, but I thought I'd share that with you guys. And yep, 150 episodes. I hope that you guys do 150 more. And I will talk to you guys later. See ya. Peace.
Yeah, he sent that in literally as we were just recording just now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
we'll dedicate this episode to Halo. How about that?
Hell yeah, definitely. In loving memory of Halo, the one pug to rule them all.
Yeah. I could just picture that
Rob,
dog
thanks,
jumping
man.
up on his bed.
Yeah. Well, Rob, thanks for the kind words, man, and for the legacy that you've built. And we'll have you back on here. You think you're done? You're not done.
We'll get you out of retirement a little bit.
Just when I get out, they pull me back in.
Right. Well, hey, what a way to kick things off. Let's just jump in here and get started. So the first story is a little bit of a follow-up to a tale we told, God, it's probably been 100 episodes ago. If you guys remember, I told tale of a friend of mine back in our hometown who mentioned before that she had a brief encounter with a Bigfoot. And she was actually featured on episode 10 of season 4 of Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot. Her encounter wasn't a face-to-face encounter, but she did find footprints in the snow in her yard. And if you recall, I said the footprints were so big, she called the local sheriff. He couldn't explain them away. They called the game warden. They couldn't explain them away. And then the game warden mentioned to her in passing, I don't know what kind of animal this would have been, but whatever it was, it had to have been at least 800 pounds to leave footprints that deep and to have feet that big. So I caught up with her, probably about a month ago, and asked her how things were. And, I just said, I still tell stories about your Bigfoot encounter. And she told me that recently she and her boyfriend were out driving around one night, and she told him the story of the Bigfoot, how she found the footprints and yada, yada, yada. Well, he had a very interesting revelation. See, he said back when he and his 4 brothers had been children, they were born and raised in southeastern Kansas, and they grew up on a farm near some woods. He said that as a kid, it wasn't too uncommon for them to be outside playing, and for them to hear what sounded like something big and heavy walking around in the woods, snapping branches and twigs in the brush. They'd go out looking for whatever was making the noise, but they'd only catch a little glimpse of whatever the perpetrator was. So then they'd be playing by the river, and they'd hear the same noises in the trees in the woods, and oftentimes they'd see something large and hairy way down by the bank of the river, usually a few hundred feet downstream, and many times the figure would be splashing around in the water like it's trying to grab a fish. But anytime they'd try to sneak up on it, or just outright run towards the figure, it'd look up, see them coming, no matter how quiet they were, and it'd jump back in the water and quickly swim down the river. They said whatever the thing was big and hairy. And then lastly, growing up, their mother kept a really impressive garden, because back then, especially, having a garden would be kind of imperative for feeding 5 hungry boys. So on several occasions, their mom would go out behind the house in the early morning to pick the ripened veggies from the garden, but instead, she'd come back.
You're talking about this like it's back in the frontier days.
Well, I mean, it's probably about 70 years ago, 60, 70 years ago.
True.
So, so instead of coming back in with, an apron full of veggies, she'd come back in all pissed off because something had just come into the yard right before she went outside and picked the garden clean. Whatever it was would pluck the veggies from the vines or pull up the turnips, but otherwise leave the garden itself intact, almost like whatever it was intelligent enough to know not to harm the plants, and they would continue to bear fruit. Next, he went on to say that one of the older farmers down the road had told he and his brothers about one time he had buried a, quote, big ol' hairy Indian feller that he had came across on his land. The old farmer assumed it was just a large Native American that had died and that it was just unnaturally hairy. So he said he did the respectable thing and buried the hairy person in the land that he found it in. Now her boyfriend wishes he could go back and remember the farmer's land better and go dig up the bones. The last thing he had told her is how recently he'd taken to going on long walks for exercise and for a way to pass the time. So one of his more ambitious walks is to walk the entire El Dorado Lake. And one of the things that he'll occasionally do is get close to a particular spot on the bank where there's small fish that like to swim up. He'll grab a handful of smaller rocks and snipe the fish in the water with the rocks. Then he'll throw the rocks into the shallow water and hit the fish on the head, grab the fish, and put them along the edge of the bank for the wild animals in the area to eat. Well, he told her about how oftentimes he'll go out and amass a decent collection of fish. And then all of a sudden, ironically and inexplicably, something will begin to throw rocks at him from just inside the tree line. He said he's never really been hurt by a flying rock, but whatever is throwing them at him has pretty good aim and always manages to run him off. And he'll run up from behind the area he suspects the culprit to be hiding, but he won't find a soul. And when he gets back down to the bank, all the fish are gone, with nothing left as evidence as to what it was that was taking them. No bones, no fish skin, nothing. So after she told him about her experience, and they begin to watch all these old Finding Bigfoot shows, he's come to the realization that whatever it was he has encountered all these years must have been a Bigfoot. Because as a kid, back in those days, because now he's in his 50s, he didn't know what a Bigfoot was. We didn't have the internet or the TV shows. It was all just word of mouth. So now, being a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch makes a lot of sense.
That's crazy. No, it's so weird that he would bury the he's not the guy that buried what he thought of the Indian, right? Okay.
When he was a kid, the farmer that lived down the street from him is the one that found the body and buried it.
So what year would that have been?
Man, I mean, let's just guess that he's 60, and it's 2020 now, so I mean, shit, 50s or 60s.
Still seems really weird to just bury a random guy you'd find on your land without notifying somebody. But
well, it depends on the part of town, man. Yeah. Imagine you're down somewhere southeastern corner of Kansas by Oklahoma, kind of in the plains area. Yeah,
I mean, there are reports of farmers in Kentucky and around that area, and up in the Appalachia, that when they're farming their land, they would actually dig up mummified bodies of giants and dwarfs, and out of respect, they would just rebury them on the same land that they found them, and then write it down in a journal. And Bob's your uncle. It's done. So,
right.
Wow.
And I mean, to me, the part that stands out is finding the corpse of what you think is a, quote, big, hairy Indian fella. I mean, it would have had to have been a somewhat fresh body for it to still be hairy and to be, identifiable as a person.
Yeah.
So to me, I would like to think or hope that it's something that died sooner or more recently,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting story nonetheless. And
oh yeah, I love it because it's so fun that she had this experience and then she meets this guy by chance and they hit it off, and all of a sudden he's like, holy shit, the last piece of the puzzle. In my whole life I've been plagued by this giant hairy thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. All right, Steve, what do you got, man? This one was submitted to you.
Yep, submitted to me on the Facebook. This is from my friend Megs. In 2017, we went to Texas for a wedding I was in and set up surveillance while we were gone. One of the cameras were in the garage, but there was no way anyone could have gotten in there. No one was home. We were all in Texas. During the reception, there was an alert because a work lamp in the garage was flickering and came on, so we watched. And then the light went back out, but you could see the silhouette of a person. You can see it in the picture. And she actually included a picture of that.
Yeah. I mean, you can clearly see what looks like a head, a chest, a torso, an arm.
And then, that's it on that story. She also put another one. She said, probably around 2003, 2004, I was sleeping and remember waking up because I had a strong sense that someone was watching me. When I woke up, I saw a figure walking towards me, and the closer it got, the more it faded. It didn't have distinct features, but the outlined features I recognized and felt it was my deceased uncle. I didn't feel scared, but more comforted, yet perplexed.
Damn.
And then she also goes off to say, also, after one of my closest people committed suicide, for a few weeks, I would see shadows running by. I do have PTSD, so I'm never sure if it's part of that or not. I would feel someone sit on my bed. I could feel someone standing at the doorway, and it would wake me up sometimes. Sometimes I would be reading my Nook, and the pages would start flipping like crazy all of a sudden. There would be other instances, like being at church and a pastor saying something only he would say, stuff like that.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so I guess that's pretty cool.
Shout out to the Nook.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to remember what that was. I'm not trying to be snide. I'm just like, oh yeah, one of the first e-readers.
What up, Zune?
So that's crazy, man. Something's interacting with whatever electronic device you're using, causing the pages to flip.
And like, it's weird she said this about the church and the pastor. I was listening to Justin Long's podcast, Life is Short. It's a phenomenal show. He had Chelsea Handler on there. And whether you like her, hate her, whatever, it's very fun to listen to her talk, in my opinion. And she talks about something that she went through in her life where she went to like a medium, and now she's all about connecting with her mother and her brother. She lost her brother at a really, really young age, and then she lost her mom, like I think 8 or 9 years after her brother. And she was like really like lost and all this stuff, and she wanted to like get a sign. So the medium told her to, what is something that your brother and your mother loved that only you would know. So if you've seen something like that, it would trigger a memory for them. So she says they both liked oranges. When I was younger, I remember getting oranges and we would love it, and it was just like, it's just a memory, it's in my brain. So now, every time she has like, she's feeling doubtful, she's feeling down, she'll just like talk to herself, and she'll just be like, hey, cause, she's born and raised, under Judaism, and but she doesn't follow anymore or practice anymore. So, but she's more like spiritual and like her own things. And she says that now whenever she's feeling down or depressed or something in her life's bothering her and she wants that comfort from her mom and her brother, she'll just say, show me an orange. And then like within like a day or two, she'll randomly see an orange in like the weirdest place, or the like a bus will drive by and there'll be one on there. Like it's the weirdest shit. And it was really cool.
Pelted by a random orange.
Do what?
I said she'll get pelted by a random orange.
Yeah. So it was really cool to listen to her talk about that stuff. And she's trying to find a way to do that same thing with her dog Chewy. She had a Chewy has like been like a prolific thing in her life and her career. Everybody knows her dog, and that dog ended up passing away. And she's trying to do that now with that, but it's a little harder because she's like, we think it's because he's a canine and not like a human. Like, it sounds kooky, but like, I don't know. It was really interesting to see it. So when Meg said this about the pastor and the church saying that, like, I think like I was born and raised in the church. I don't practice anymore or anything like that, but I know that like being in a church and having a really good pastor and them doing their lesson and the talk, that's kind of what they do. That's kind of how the whole system and process works, is that everybody takes a little bit out of the lesson on the Sunday speech and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's easy to piece that stuff together. So it'd be really weird to hear him say something that only her friend, her closest person that died did that.
That's almost like a movie moment, when the lead is in the church and then all of a sudden they zone out and all of a sudden the preacher starts talking to them. Yep. Wow, that's wild.
Very true.
Well, hell yeah, Meg. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing those. That was 3 separate stories. Yeah. And we'll be sure to include your surveillance snapshot here in the Instagram and the Facebook as well. Well, the next story, I'm going to go ahead and just abbreviate this person's name to give him some slight anonymity, because honestly, I can't remember if he said to leave his name out when he told us, Steve. So let's just get it. He goes on to say, when I was younger, it was like 1989 or 1990. I was 8 or 9 years old, and we lived just north of Dallas by the Louisville River. One night, I heard a weird noise outside, like a crackling noise. like someone was wadding tinfoil. And so I went to look out my window. When I looked outside my window and up in the sky, there was this weird set of lights, a group of 3 lights, one green, one red, and one white. The lights were sitting stationary, but then started to spin around in an oval formation.
I've seen this movie. Close Encounters.
Yeah, right. They would spin around really fast and then just stop. They'd start to spin again and then stop. Start again, stop. I watched this go on like 3 times before I became completely freaked out and backed away from the window. What's really odd is after seeing that, I developed an instant fear of aliens and UFOs. He gave us a second story. In 1998, my friend Josh and I had just left Benton. Benton's a small town between our hometown of El Dorado and Wichita, by the way.
Yeah, it's very, very, very small.
I mean, you blink and you miss it. Yeah, it's now, those of you who are keeping score, Benton is that little town that I shit my pants outside of.
Yeah, no shit. Synchronicity, dude.
Right. So back in 1998, my friend Josh and I had just left Benton and were driving down a country road towards Wichita. Maybe a mile or 2 down the road, we noticed a greenish turquoise orb-shaped light. The light was the size of maybe a 50-cent piece. Me and my friend decided that we'd see what it was, so we kept trying to get closer to it, but we could never quite catch up to it. Then it suddenly grew to the size of a cantaloupe. It wasn't like a hard circle, but more like a circular anamorphic blob. We followed it for like another 4 miles, and then after that, it just disappeared. We stopped the car and sat there for a few minutes and couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. When we started to drive again, we got about 50 feet down the road, and the orb appeared behind us, but now it was the size of a basketball. So we took off, but it continued to chase us. To tell the truth, though, I couldn't tell you for how long it followed us because my friend who was driving put the pedal to the floor and we never looked back. But from start to finish, the whole thing lasted for about a half an hour, give or take.
So, first off, that story's crazy because, like, I know where all these places are. Well, besides his first story. And if we're keeping tabs again, I guess Benton's the happening spot. When I was driving right past Benton, going towards Towanda, which is another small little hick town, this was where my story was when I was driving on the road. Yeah, when I was driving on the highway, and my ex was in the seat. We're just listening to music, whatever. Just look at the highway, and we both see that silver flash, little orb type thing in the sky, and then it got really bright, and then just disappeared. And it was like really weird. I was like, that was my one thing. We mentioned earlier the thing. You've only seen one thing. That was it. And it's crazy that it's right there in that same area because that would have been where he was driving, I'm pretty sure. But the thing we didn't mention is that Benton does have a pretty active landing strip. No jokes.
Oh, yeah, it does. A Benton Airport, yeah.
No jokes, Preston. And then on that, there's a lot of aircraft that go in and out of there. I mean, you have your CEOs of companies that go with the private jets. You've got your little farm things, all that type of shit. So with that, I don't know. Who knows what I saw, but for his story, like, that's crazy shit. Like, that sounds terrifying.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, just to not know what it was, just chasing you.
Yeah, no shit. Like it getting bigger and stuff. Yeah, no way. I'd be like, hell no. All right, so Preston, you have something of an orb story?
Yeah, I totally forgot about this. My buddy Josh from high school, we used to sit next to each other in a band first hour and, fuck off and not play our instruments. Anyways, he's a listener of the show, and on June 1st, he sent me in a message, dude! So I saw my first light anomaly. I was getting off at 235 at 25th Street North, stopped at the stop sign and looked to my right, and something was strobing in the middle of the road like a bicycle headlight. It was bright enough to catch my eye, but not a bright flashlight. And as I made my turn toward it, the blinking of the light stopped, and as I came to the location where it was, absolutely nothing was there. It wasn't a reflection because this was 2 a.m. and hardly any traffic on 235 and nobody on 25th Street. About 10 minutes later, we came back the same way and no light or back casting of said light. So I was like, oh man, can I use that as a quick listener story? He was like, sure. But it was straight up 2 a.m. I made sure to look at the clock. Glad it wasn't 3 a.m., LOL. But it couldn't have been a reflection of any kind it was as if a bike light was turned on blinking but on the road.
Damn. Huh. That's crazy. That's crazy. Lucky shit.
Yeah. Did he say where it was?
235 and
25th
and by the 25th Street exit.
Yeah.
So the 25th Street exit, that's basically like a bridge that goes over 235 if you're driving that way.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not anywhere near Benton.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you stuck that one in there.
What was his name?
Josh.
Shout out to Josh.
He once bet me $5 that I couldn't, the old carnival sideshow where they would camera stuff in their nose. I'm able to do that. So he once bet me $5 that I couldn't get a pencil all the way up my nose. And so I said, fuck it. Why not? And I got the pencil all the way from the tip to the eraser straight back.
Trust me, Preston, we can tell.
It really actually explains a lot. I didn't really
think
yourself
a fucking lobotomy through your nose.
Yeah, say a DIY lobotomy. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense now. Shit. I told you guys this episode will be full of revelations. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. Well, that's awesome. And also a big shout out to our buddy Gilly for sending us that story. We really appreciate it, man. Well, up next, we got a story from Joe, but it's actually a story within a story.
It's like another paranormal inception.
Dun, dun.
And because of just how bonkers this story is, we actually did an interview with Joe instead of just having him submit the actual story to us, because we wanted to get all the details, and he actually interviews his mom to get her side of the experience, so we include that as well. So let's check that out.
Hence the inception.
So we're actually recording this separately from the regular episode. So with me right now is Preston.
What's up, all you ghosts and goblins?
God. And then with us is a very special guest, our buddy Joe.
Hey, welcome. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
It is kind of cool because we haven't really had a chance to do this kind of thing with anybody who listens outside of literally holding up like my iPhone to somebody's mouth as they tell us a story. So this is fun, Joe. You're the first one.
I feel so honored.
So you got a special story to tell us, and I like to say it's kind of a wonderfully layered paranormal cake because there's so many aspects to this.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
It is, and it's cool because you've added another witness testimony to kind of sew into yours, so it's pretty awesome. I guess we should just jump into it, huh?
My story is very much a thing that happened to me that I wasn't completely aware of because I was, a child, as it were. But it is my mom's story, and it involves not one ghost or two ghosts, but three, arguably even four spirits. I don't know how to get into it. I guess I should let her tell the story.
Okay, I'll remind you the story as I remember it. And this is when you were a baby and you were still in a crib. Not a baby, like maybe one, because you could stand and you could walk and talk. But at the time, you still slept in the crib. And anyways, you started to tell me once you learned how to talk that, the man, as a lot of times it was the man would talk to you in the crib. And then, I talked to you, and then I come to find out that it was two men that talked to you. One was an older guy in overalls that was nice. And then one was a younger man who was neat. And he had a burnt face. And I did some investigating, and I found out that there used to be a house on that foundation that burned down with a man and his son in it. And so...
I remember you telling me that Like you would catch me on the baby monitor all the time?
Yes! Talking to him and stuff. Because the one was mean, and the older one supposedly was nice, and he would talk to you in a nice way, but the younger one, like, didn't want us there, or didn't want you there, or jealous, or something was wrong with him. And he would be mean. And so, and then, yeah, but when he started, like, physically, like I said, physically started seeing scratches or bruises, that I'm like, well, where do they come from? And they'd be like hand size, like a person, an adult person. I was like, I felt like it was going way too far. And at the time I was dating Wayne Kilmer, who's Val Kilmer's cousin, the actor. They even looked a lot alike.
That's crazy.
But he looked like Val Kilmer when he had long hair when he was younger, because he's younger than Val. But yeah, Wayne is Val's for real cousin. Like, their moms are sisters, is how they're related.
Okay.
And so that's pretty cool. Anyways, I was dating him at the time, and he lived in the basement. And yeah, she's right. He did smoke weed all the time in the basement, constantly. But he smoked weed, he said, because he had a lot of back pain because he was in the war in Iraq. And they had these big trucks with these big missiles on them. And it wasn't like tightened down all the way, or something happened and it started to come loose. And he like caught the missile like with the shoulder in his back, because if it fell on the ground, it could have like detonated or whatever. But it fucked him up because it was so freaking heavy. And he was discharged after that and actually got a Purple Heart, because even though it wasn't wounded like in combat, he still was wounded on the line of duty, they said. And so he actually had a Purple Heart, and he was on disability, or maybe the military disability is how he got his money every month. Anyways, he was in a lot of pain because of his back, and he didn't want surgery, so he just smoked weed. And anyways, he said that he had these two spirits that watched over him, and they called him Whitey and Blackie, because one was more darker than the other, and that the darker one was more of the ornery one, but however, he was the most, and he would be the most like protective though one too, I guess. He was like, said that he would ask them to help us with the other spirits in the house to banish at least the bad one, right? And we had studied this quite a bit at the time that we were studying witchcraft and supernatural things. I had a lot of books, and I was doing a lot of studying on different things.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so we just attempted this, and I guess it wasn't Kira. It had to have been April, though, because I know it was one of the two. So it was me, April, and Wayne one day, and we had a Ouija board, and we used it quite a bit, and it was pretty active. Like, it had a really strong pull to it and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, there was a strong link to it. And we had requested to talk to Blackie with the Ouija board. And it was saying, like, yes, and it was confirming that it was him or whatnot. And we told him, we basically asked if he could help us with the old man, with the mean man. And, I mean, I can't remember all the things that it said, but basically when it finally agreed and it went to yes, and then all of a sudden it sounded like we were in the basement, and it sounded like I had a bunch of, like, just stuff stored, in the basement in the corner. That was like, like my old wedding stuff and just old things, and in boxes and whatnot. And in the area we were in the middle, and it was cold. I remember it was wintertime. And what we did is we hung up sheets and used space heaters so that our area would stay warm. So we were in a warm area, right? With a little table similar to this. And it sounded like over against the wall where we couldn't see, that it sounded like a whole bunch of shit fell down. Like we all heard it. And then it sounded like the window opened and closed, the basement window. And I was like, I don't even think they could open. And we, of course, turned on the lights and moved the curtain, and we looked, and nothing had fallen. The window was not open. It just made the sounds. And ever since that day, it was like the bad man lived under the porch. None of the animals would go under the porch anymore. You'd have a bad feeling if you came in that way. We started going in the back door because it was so creepy. And it was like he was banished outside, basically, right outside where that window was, which was by the front porch. And prior to that, like the animals would hang out if it started raining or something down there. The animals would go down there and to get shelter till we came home, and they never did after that. So I think that the spirit got banished under the porch or outside, and that was just where he made his little,
Yeah.
So it was so surreal, and I'm like, if it would have been Kira, she totally would have remembered, because we all heard this. I mean, we jumped, and then of course, and then Blackie came back and he spelled out done. And anyways, and then when we decided to go our separate ways, because Mima, whatever, she was like, they came over one day when I wasn't home, and they went in the basement and they saw my study material, all my books, because I was studying all different kinds of things, not just witchcraft. I did study quite a few religions, but she was like, "Oh, they're devil worshippers. Get out of my house." And so I moved, and I took you with me, and then eventually we just kind of quit talking about it. But I did move out of that.
So essentially, what we had there was like a royal rumble of ghosts. It sounds like.
I don't even know where to begin.
Paranormal bodyguards.
Right. So, I mean, it all comes down to Wayne Kilmer, of all people, right? That's insane. I tried to track this guy down, but he has completely disappeared from the internet, it seems like.
He did. I even Googled several different ways just to maybe throw like a picture in there for people to kind of just imagine. So without that, we're just going to imagine Val Kilmer.
Yeah, that's good. I went into hardcore. I was like going through like old phone books trying to get this guy's phone number. I have a number, but I can't call. That's weird. Yeah, I'm like 90% certain this dude is crazy. I found a couple of YouTube videos of him, and
oh wow,
I'm pretty sure he is just off the rails. So the only other source really is my mother, who we heard her story, and then my cousin April, who unfortunately has passed away.
Oh no.
But I do remember her telling me about it. This was a while ago. So, but yeah, like, you got your ghouls and your goblins and your ghosts and your witches.
It's like, that's like I said earlier, it's just a wonderful layered cake of all this paranormal stuff. And by the way, I'm so happy that you did the investigative work to get to the bottom of this, because you told Preston and I this story way, way early on when we first started the show. And it wasn't nearly as detailed as this, so I hope you feel vindicated, too, by retelling the story after talking to your mom, who, by the way, tells a very great account of what happened.
Well, yeah, thank you. I think a lot of that comes down to just generations of storytelling. We do play a lot of Dungeons & Dragons. She was my first DM.
That's awesome.
So I'm sure there's a little bit of that in there as well. But, yeah, no, she is a wonderful human being. Yeah, when I first told you guys the story, like, I was misremembering it, because I was remembering the stories that she had been telling me for like years when I was a kid about all this crazy stuff that happened to me, and like I had assumed that the old man and the young man were what I very affectionately called Whitey and Blackie.
Right.
Turns out I was incorrect.
Yeah, the story you had told us was, we're like, so Joe, do you have a ghost story? And you're like, yeah, growing up, I had these two ghosts when I was a baby, and one was Blackie and one was Whitey, and one was really good and one was really bad. And
yeah, so
that was the entire story.
Yeah, it was not a good story when I had first told it. I'm so glad that I have a more complete story about it.
The director's cut.
Yeah. And from multiple viewpoints as well.
So, I mean, what do you remember any of that? Like, I mean, because she goes into great detail. You were very young, essentially.
So, yeah, I very, very distinctly remember she had photo albums, because we had, like, filed police reports, actually, about, like, claw marks and stuff, because at the time she thought it might have been something else or something weird, but like, yeah, I had like crazy bruises and scratches along my back, and I don't know, maybe my crib was just full of nails, who knows? I think that's fairly unlikely, but Yeah, we searched everywhere for those those photo books, and we just couldn't find them anywhere. I don't know where they could be, but they exist somewhere.
Heck, yeah, a lot of time's probably gone by between now and then, so it's easy to misplace things or push things off.
Yeah, we've moved several times.
Yeah. That's just nuts, man. Just to know that first of all, that you're not nuts, that thing really did happen. To have that absolute that yes, something strange did happen and you're not the only one who saw it. And also, like, it's sometimes rare for a parent to just even have a ghost story, let alone, admit those things are real.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of skepticism, and I think it's healthy to have a certain amount of skepticism, to where I'm sure since my mother was practicing her witchcraft and stuff, she was a Wicca priestess and all that. I'm sure there was a certain amount of wanting to see something, but she never wanted to see anything happen to me, obviously.
Right.
And there's a little bit of, what came first, chicken or the egg, about what caused her to go down that path,
Sure. Well, hell, when would that have been, Joe? Early 90s?
So, yeah, that would have been about 1994.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, shit, that's, to me, outside of the 80s, it bled into the early 90s with the fascination of, witchcraft and the belief of Wiccan and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean... She wasn't the only one. The movie The Craft came out sometime near then. So, I mean, it's not like she was the only one. There was a huge resurgence in, just studying witchcraft and just...
I mean, yeah, enough to pull in Val Kilmer's stepbrother or whatever. Cousin.
The best part, when you told me the story... I mean, it's been months ago now that you told me that story on Xbox. Like, I was glued to it as is, and then you name drop Val Kilmer's cousin, and it's just like, what the fuck, out of left field.
Yeah, I didn't know he had like a extended family. Who keeps track of that? Right. In Hutchinson, Kansas, of all places.
Yeah, isn't that wild, man? So. Well, yeah, I'm so glad you shared that with us, and your mom especially. Tell her thanks for taking the time to just to sit down and record it. Because again, the reason why we started the show is because we fully believe everybody has something strange, and for your mom just to retell the story and just to have the belief that we weren't going to just put her on blast and make fun of her. Like it takes some guts, especially for some strangers to take your a sensitive topic like that. So we really do appreciate her too. So
my guy that I was talking to the other day to get, my listener story portion of the show, as we were having that conversation, I brought up the fact because I was kind of sharing, some of the stuff that's happened to me throughout, my life. And I said, every person that we talk to, every person that shares a story, that I have to look at it as all these things that happened to me. I know for a fact they happened to me. So for me to actually judge a person and say, dude, this person's fucking batshit crazy, like that would make me batshit crazy. And so to know that, I had these experiences and I know that they're real, then why would I discount like somebody else's story? Like, I wholeheartely believe, Joe had this experience and it's the real deal. And, it just bothers me sometimes that we still live in that society where we're so quick to judge and be like, oh, that's so fucking extreme. Like that can't be a possibility. You whack job. And no, I mean, Jeffrey's mom, she was a practicing Wiccan, and she fucking conjured some banshee-like spirit on accident outside the trailer one night and, scared the fuck out of the kids, so...
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, my mom is such a cool person, like, especially with such, like, a bonkers story. There's so much going on, but, when I first showed it, like, and you told me to tell her things, like, yeah, it was awesome. It's great to hear and be able to like share it with more people, and hopefully people can also come forward. if my story is this crazy, then like,
Yeah. And I think that also, it's funny, that makes a safe space too. I think telling a story to a group of people who also have stories, you know, that to me is great. It's not, you know, telling your story to Scully, you know, who doesn't have any belief in it. You know, we like to kind of err on the side of Mulder sometimes and be like, no, we've seen this shit. Now you tell us about your shit. You know, that time, I think that kind of thing makes it a little easier to let go. So
we're all a bunch of Mulders around here. There's no Scullys. So,
so have you had anything else recently, or anything else you can recall unexplainable happened to you besides just this one tale?
So here's the bombshell that I've been holding this entire time that I've been waiting to drop on you for this moment.
You son of a bitch.
Apparently, when my mother and Wayne broke up, she was still worried about me because I would still talk to or be afraid of whatever was under the porch, right? So when they broke up, she convinced Wayne to perform a ritual that would bind Blackie to me.
What?
As a spirit. So, yeah, I know, like, I'm an insane person right now. And like,
I think it's great. You have like you have a B-list actor's cousin's familiar attached to you.
And like, I don't know what kind of apparition one would classify a Blackie or whatever you want to call him.
Sure.
But there have definitely been things like people talk about sleep paralysis all the time, and I've definitely had those moments, or a lot of stuff with like different mental disorders, where having issues seeing shadow people or that feeling of paranoia. But yeah, like. Blackie, if we want to call him that, we got to find a better name.
Right. I mean, it's not. Yeah. At least we paint the picture that it's a spirit.
Yeah,
you know that.
For sure.
I think that might make it a bit better.
But like he was described as being more ornery, and I've definitely had some real bad luck and just like random unexplainable things. A lot of things that I think a lot of people experience, but. Setting like my phone down somewhere and knowing exactly where I put it and coming back and it's just like in the middle of my bed for some reason or whatever, or
just kind of a trickster type spirit then.
Yeah, but I think ultimately with good intentions. But
sure.
So that that's my bombshell. Is there was some kind of like a legit ass blood ritual that bound this spirit to me.
So now,
that's nuts.
So Blackie is now your spirit guide.
I mean, I guess so. Like, I don't think he's incredibly active, or maybe he's just really lazy.
He's just the laziest spirit guide. Like, come on, do something, and then your phone's in the other room.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, maybe I have to like figure out what the ritual is to reawaken him or something. But there have definitely been moments where I felt watched or see things in the peripherals. But yeah, so that's the cherry on the top of this weird ass spirit cake.
Right. No, that's great, man. So we'll definitely need a follow up if anything comes to a very definite fruition. You have to follow up with us about that. I mean, have there ever been any times in your life that you can recall where you're like, oh shit, it definitely helped me out? Or is it more or less just kind of mischievous, playful?
I mean, it's a lot of stuff that's just really weird, like coincidence, like being into, like, I don't know, a lot of people say like guardian angels or whatever, but like being into car wrecks or just like crazy accidents and coming out completely unharmed, just totally fine.
Okay. Yeah.
I've fallen asleep while driving and like driven off the road and then just like was fine. Or the time I flipped my car and then was fine.
Sure. So you may have had some kind of luck on your side then, be it, a mischievous deity or spirit or just, just sheer dumb luck.
I like to think so. And it's fun, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, if nothing else, it's still a fun story, and depending on people's, varying belief, if nothing else, it's kind of like one of those things that makes you go, huh. Or it's one of those things where you're like, no, you passed that high school chemistry final because he's whispering the answers in your ear.
No, it was never anything like that. Yeah, no, it's either everything's real crazy and I'm an insane person, or, there's just something. And I like to think that there's something. And even if the story is like way out there, there's got to be like a kernel of something. And that's like the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, no, that's fair, man. I mean, I think every story is at least based on one grain of truth, if nothing else. So. And I mean, I don't feel like listening to your mom's story, and I don't say this just to chat you up either. I don't feel like it was a case of her just being like, ooh, and then this happened, and this happened, and this happened too. It wasn't a case of someone just making shit up on the fly. Like, I felt like it was a very genuine experience. There weren't points where she was struggling to remember a fact or quickly change something on the fly. It was very much like oh yeah, here's a thing. Here's that time I won the the high school volleyball game, or scored the winning touchdown. It was very easy for her to recall, in my opinion. So
yeah, no, that's another thing. Like, my mother has a memory like a steel trap. Like, the story, like, I asked her about it, and like within 30 seconds I had to like press record on my phone because she just launched into it.
She went into it. Yeah. And what's funny too, I mean, just to kind of attest that I support what you said, you told me that story, and then to hear your mom tell it, I remember almost verbatim what you said. And it's, I mean, almost blow for blow what you told me is how she tells it too. So, I mean,
yeah, like my mom can't lie to save her life, and I don't see any hint of like just making stuff up. Like, sure, like, there's like D&D storytelling, but this was not like, and then you step into the cave and there's a dragon or whatever. This was like, this is just what happened, and it was so casual that's what I think gives it a lot of credence.
Yeah, I love the idea of having a paranormal ghost security team, bodyguards watching over you and your child, preventing these things from coming in.
So yeah, like,
time out.
I mean, that's what I would like to do eventually. Like, I'm not a huge religious person. I'm, I don't know, curious, and I think everything's really cool and interesting. But I think eventually, if I were to have a kid of my own, then finding some kind of ritual or finding my I guess would be a guardian spirit of whatever kind. But yeah,
I like to imagine it's a badass movie, and that's what the premise is you've had a child and now you're like, oh god, the spirits are back, and it's your quest with like a 2-year-old baby to find Val Kilmer's decrepit, cousin somewhere, and all you have is these old ass YouTube videos to slightly light up the breadcrumb trail.
Yeah, man, it was really fun trying to track him down, I gotta say. And then like, he's just a weird dude.
Well, and hopefully, if nothing else, out of the story comes a sudden surge in Google searches for Val Kilmer's cousin.
Yeah, I like to imagine he was just like Tombstone Val Kilmer.
Okay, yeah, I like that. It
was about the same time, right? I think.
Yeah, I think so. I would like to correct myself. The Craft came out in 1996. It was a little after that, but yeah, let's see here. When did Tombstone come out? That'll give us a nice little visual there. Tombstone came out in 93. There you go, man.
There we go. Nice sweaty Val Kilmer.
On IMDb, there's a sweaty picture of Val Kilmer with a really nice oil tycoon mustache.
Yeah. My mom describes him as where he did look a lot like him, except he had longer hair. And no mustache, unfortunately.
Oh, too
as
bad.
cool as it would be.
Cool. All right, man. Well, again, tell your mom thank you so much for sharing that with us, and for having trusting us with that, and for you as well coming on, and hopefully we'll get to have you on in some some upcoming episodes too. That'd be pretty great. And
yeah, definitely. If I find a follow up, then I'm definitely coming to you guys first.
we have the exclusive. That's perfect. Hell yeah, cool. All right, we really appreciate it, Joe. Preston, what do you have to add into here, man?
So I came across this interview of a psychic that they're like right now. I think it's on like Amazon. They're creating like a show about like a comedian and a psychic. I don't remember the premise. In the interview, they were talking about his abilities and like, you know, how long has he been able to, you know, see auras, talk to spirits and things like that. And so he's been doing it for like 30, 40 years. And he's got this one spirit guide that follows him around. And it's kind of like the third man effect. Like it's not always active, but it is a black cat. And it's missing its eyes, like its eyes are like just like that kind of like sunken hole. And the psychic basically describes that when he was a kid, he was walking home from school, and this black cat was on the side of the road, and he was petting it, and he was having like a really great time, like, oh my god, this cat's amazing. And then the cat started to run away and got hit by a car, and he made such a connection with the animal that after the animal died, it decided to cling on and not, you know, pass on to the spirit realm. But he's like, as he's aged, his spirit guide is this cat, but the cat gets more like decrepit looking, rotten looking, and it's like it's changing year after year. So he's like, there'll be some times where something's bad about to happen. Like, you know, like I'm about to get into like a car wreck, and he's like, I'll look to the side of the road and there'll be like this zombified looking cat. I'm like, oh shit, it's Billy. Something bad's about to happen. Then bam, like he gets in a car wreck. And so that's his spirit guide is basically this, you know, rotting cat. So.
Nice.
Well, it's nice to know that someone else out there has something similar.
Yeah. Maybe your spirit guide is just checking your phone, but he doesn't. Shit, tongue-tied. But because he doesn't have eyes, he just sets your phone down in the wrong place every time.
Maybe. Or I'm crazy. You know, there's always that.
I mean, there is always that. Look, it's nice that in 2020, I think we can all admit that we all suffer from a little mental illness. You know, it's never been a better time to admit that we're all just a little off in some way or another, and that's fair, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think right now it could be even helpful to like just to lean into just a little bit of escapism, a little bit of wonderment, a little bit of imagination.
Well, and who's to say? And again, I'm no expert. I'm not a scientist. Maybe some of this mental illness could be related slightly to things that are not of this world that we can't explain.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows, right? Like,
right.
I am also not a scientist, so.
Aha, that makes three of us in the room. I will vouch for Preston. He is not a scientist either. Like, right. We'll consult our panel of experts. Nice. Well, Joe, thanks again, man, for joining us. We really appreciate that, and we can't wait to hear if you have any sudden surge. And maybe just by talking about your spirit guide, it'll amplify things a bit, maybe boost up the Wi-Fi, so to speak.
Joe, I want you to do an experiment for me. I want you to go to a float tank and get a float done, because like if you still your mind and still your body, that opens you up to a level of communication. And Blackie could be out there just waiting for that moment, and you guys could have like a connection inside the float tank.
I am definitely going to try that because that sounds exciting.
Just don't rub your eyes after you put your hands in the salt water.
That's bad. That'll burn.
Yeah, and don't do it around mosquito season because my second float was ruined because I rubbed my eye and had a couple mosquito bites. But that's not what this episode's about. So, hell yeah. All right. Well, Joe, thanks again, man. And let's just get right back into the stories. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Joe, thanks, man, for that. Thank you for sending that in. And also thanks to your mom. Again, tell her thanks for giving us that story.
Yeah.
And really also good. Shout out to Val Kilmer's cousin.
Yeah. We know Wayne's the real Batman in that relationship.
Yeah.
in that relationship.
He's the Huckleberry.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I would have never expected, that name to be dropped in the story. But also,
when I listened to it earlier, I was like, wait a minute. Really? What? Like, what a
Of all the
flex,
random
okay.
people to be included in that tale.
Yeah.
But what's cool too is I really liked the little bomb he dropped on us, having the potential for having, kind of a dark companion or, some kind of spirit
wild.
guide or whatever.
And I like Preston's suggestion of doing the float tank thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be pretty cool, man. Let us know how that works out, Joe. And shout out to Joe's mom.
Yeah.
She seems like a great lady. But I think
most
it's
definitely.
2020. You need to change the name.
From Blackie.
Yeah. It was like when you guys first told me that story, like on Xbox or text or whatever. I was like, I don't know if we should talk about that. Like, and you were like, no, it's better. Like,
Right, yeah, and he acknowledges that.
Yeah.
We'll find a new name. But yeah, awesome. Thanks a lot, Joe. All right, well, if you want to take the reins, why don't you deliver the next one, Presto?
This next story was sent in by listener Chris B, and it's his Skinwalker Ranch story. And he starts off by saying, hey there. Yeah, we still need to meet up once things go back to normal, if there ever will be a normal again. Like I said before, I worked at the ranch from 2010 to 2016 when it sold. Then left Bigelow Aerospace in 2018 and moved back to Vegas. August of 2019, History Channel contacted me and asked if I could be as an advisor, so I got the privilege to meet the new team and share a few experiences. I was pretty reserved because I wasn't too sure what I could share. Well, then October I heard about AAWSAP and the ranch, specifically intel about us who worked on the ranch, and I became more open. Started a Twitter account where I share my photography pictures of the ranch at Chris Bartel SWR. Also, I was looking for answers to now more questions.
Now, let me preface this real quick. Let me interject real quick. The History Channel just released a brand new show. I believe it was like Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, where they send out a brand new team of scientists out there to kind of walk around and survey and see if they can figure out, actual scientific explanations as to what causes the phenomenon out there. And kind of like Chris says, they too just left with a lot more questions than they did answers.
and how do we know this Chris guy?
He's a listener of the show and reached out via the Instagram.
Wow. That's dope.
And so we've been kind of I've been chatting with him back and forth. Now, before COVID hit, before this whole thing erupted, we actually had plans, and we still do eventually, to get together and do a longer episode and just kind of chat about some of the stuff that, he may have experienced out there on Skinwalker. Because, we've talked about it. There's countless podcasts, TV shows, documentaries.
Yeah.
That place is just insane.
That's pretty rad. Cool.
Yeah.
See, when we get messages, guys, to the Instagram, we all have it on our phones, but I kind of let Sean spearhead that because he uses Instagram a lot more than I do. Every once in a while, I'll check the message to see what they write back and forth. But sometimes I like to keep it a secret like this, so that when I hear this stuff, I'm like, holy shit! Like, I didn't know this guy was following us and sent all this. Like, that's
well,
awesome.
And sometimes I'll have somebody write in like Chris, and I don't really just like text you immediately and say, guys, because it's kind of fun to have a surprise like that. Like, holy shit, a guy that spent time at Skinwalker Ranch reached out. So, sometimes it's kind of fun to reveal those things slowly. But yeah, Preston, the AAWSAP is the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Applications Program. They study unexplained aerial phenomenon, UAP now, at the urging of... Oh, never mind. Yeah, that's it.
So let's just say they're a bunch of fucking nerds.
Yeah.
Like they're just going out there doing
a bunch of nerds doing the Lord's
call
work.
them the aw snap.
God.
Jesus.
Go back to your fucking.
Preston's
Go
way
back
of
to your eraser lobotomy, man.
Yeah.
Does anybody smell graphite?
Yeah.
All right, back to you, Presto.
So I reached out to my previous employer, Colum Key Healer, and was met with silence pretty much. Now, here it is in 2020, and I still have more questions about the ranch. Was my experience real? Were they manipulated by something else? I truly believe that my experiences to be real, and they have a Native American foundation. So with that said, I'll share one story from my time there. It's nothing too amazing, but gives you an insight of what the property is about. In November of 2010, myself and another BAASS, so
They couldn't add a D. Like you couldn't add a fucking D.
badass officer.
That's amazing.
Hindsight, Steven.
Yeah.
Hindsight is always 20.
No, I'm saying like whoever made that. That
I know that's what I'm saying. Yeah, looking back, they probably wish they made.
Yeah, I mean, they all did.
My badass officer were scouting the far west side of the property, a side that nobody likes to talk about, but for good reason. That's a whole nother story. Anyways.
Well, damn it, I want that story too.
That's why we got to meet up when this whole thing is safer.
It's around 3 a.m., so the witching hour. It's cold. We were with 3 dogs sitting on fallen down trees at Homestead 3 when we heard Indian drums beat for approximately 10 seconds. It happened so fast, I was not able to catch it on a recorder. All 3 dogs alerted and looked dumbfounded, as did us. We never found the source of the drums, but it was so random and odd. That's the truth about Skinwalker Ranch. Things always happen when you least expect it.
That is so badass, dude.
Yeah.
It's all about that Native American shit, man, for reals.
Yeah, that's like the top 5 sounds you don't want to hear at 3 a.m.
Dude, any kind of drum chant, dude, you don't want to hear that shit ever. You know it's going down.
It's weird that he brought up the drumming because when we talked about Skinwalker Ranch, I came across a story of a security guard that worked on that ranch. And he had this experience where, like, he ran into an actual skinwalker that looked like a decrepit werewolf. And when it attacked him and he woke up in this tunnel. And as he was trying to get out of the tunnel, it was, like, never ending. Like, the tunnel just kept going and going and going. And he's like, I lost all track of time. And when I finally got out of the tunnel, it's like I was in some weird Navajo landscape mixed with a Vincent van Gogh painting. Like the sky was really...
He went through a wormhole,
he's like,
dude.
Yeah, like a vision.
He's like, the sky was really surreal. So he's walking around like these mesas and he's like in this weird, triptych canyon. And he hears this Native American drum beat in the background. And he can see the shadows off the canyon wall, like what looks like Native Americans dancing. So he's like, fuck it. I mean, what else can I do, right? I'm here. So he goes over and gets to where the fire is, and lo and behold are these little Native American dwarves, like, doing this, like, drum beat and this chant. And they were basically that spiritual chant that they were doing was to keep the skinwalker from devouring his soul in that plane of existence.
Whoa, really?
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's like, there's that story from that security guard, and here's our listeners like, fuck yeah, I heard Native American drums at 3 a.m. Like, woo.
I heard them fucking dwarves, dude. This motherfucker almost got ate by a damn skinwalker.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more stories, Chris. We really appreciate you writing in, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I wish we could have got together a heck of a lot sooner already, but such is life.
He's not local, is he?
Oh God, I think so.
Damn, cool. Well,
burgers and beer, Chris. Burgers and beer.
Yeah. God, I had an amazing burger the other day, dude. Shout out to Broadway Burgers, man, on Broadway Street. I know I say Broadway, everybody gets kind of leery in Wichita. But, dude, that place, oh my God, dude. I was really hungry. I said, fuck it, I deserve this. I got the fucking full pound burger. And it was amazing.
Good God.
With the side of
is that the burger joint that's in that old decrepit Dairy Queen?
It's got like a red thing, maybe. Like,
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, they got the big smoker out there. Yeah, they're a burger and barbecue.
That's a
joint.
fucking heart attack waiting to happen right there.
Oh, dude, dude, I ate on that damn thing for 3 meals. It was only $9. $9 for 3 days.
If you cook me a hamburger and I don't feel like I'm going to get a heart attack by eating it, get the fuck out of here. Like, that's not a hamburger.
Yeah, no shit. Anyways,
I'm sitting over here.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I like turkey burgers.
Derailing this story with a fucking skinwalker burger.
Yes, ew.
I'm telling you, man,
skin?
all these people that own businesses, they need to do kitschy shit like that. Do a cryptid.
Oh, for sure, man.
Do a cryptid version of everything.
The peanut butter Bigfoot burger.
Yeah, dude. So I'm telling.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Big Dobbs, man. Do that with the bomb, dude. Do a cryptid series. I'm telling you, it'll sell like crazy.
We haven't talked about that.
Check out BigDobsBeardBomb.com and check out Since Swizzle Dick Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Mothman's musk.
Bigfoot's taint.
Gross. That one's randomly inserted in random unmarked tins.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, hey, again, Chris, man, thank you so much for writing into us, and I can't wait to talk to you some more. And then I'll throw some photos that he has taken through the landscapes of the Skinwalker Ranch up on the Instagram as well, and then we'll link his Twitter if anybody wants to go on there and take a look.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds awesome.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Sean here, and I think after Steven's riveting tale of Broadway burgers, it's a good time for me to jump in and drop a quick message. So, it looks like, with all the content we got from all you guys, it's actually going to be too much to put into one single episode. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and cut, paste, and load this episode up. You're already listening to it, so you know that's what we did. And then I'm going to have to go ahead and do a second episode to fit the rest of the stories in there. It seems as though cramming everything into one episode made that file size way too big to post in one single episode. So, good news, bad news. Bad news, you're going to have to wait a little longer to hear the second half of the stories. Good news, we got a bunch of awesome content still coming your way. And you can expect that next week during... I guess that'd be a little after July 4th. So anyway, again, thank you so much, guys, for everybody who's sent stuff in thus far, everything you've heard so far, and then brace yourselves because we still got some really good stuff coming up. So thank you guys so much for listening. You know the routine. Check us out on Instagram, PXLPARA. Nope, sorry, that was actually our promo code, PXL Paranormal, and then also on Twitter and our Facebook account as well. Check out BigDobsBeardBomb.com. Use the promo code I said earlier, PXLPARA. Check out Fast Print here in town on Harry and Rock. Go say hi to Leslie at CD Trade Post here on Pawnee and Seneca. And just thank you guys so much for listening. This has been a lot of fun so far. And again, lots of great stuff coming your way next week. For now, on behalf of Preston and Steven, cheers to the weird shit in the world and those of us that love to talk about it. And please... stay spooky and stay on that paranormal highway.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. Email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.